Still waiting on a name. Ish doesn't like the domain game, so I gotta go back to the ChatGPT gulags and find another name to brand ourselves with.
Yeah, we can't use the domain game because the great domain Sherpa game has the domain game section. So,
understandably, we have to defer to them. Yes, that makes sense.
We'll just be called the
Domain Street. I'm trying to think of it's too corny, right? It's too corny. ChatGPT 4.5 is not yet on the level to where it can come up with a classy yet punchy podcast name. But anyway, here today we've got Adam Masonette, who is a longtime domainer. We've been sparring on Twitter, going back and forth. Adam is an OG and has a ton of knowledge to share. So welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on here. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're excited to pick your brain. So just some table stakes for everybody out there. It is $5.com Friday at Unstoppable. So for the next 13 hours, each one of you get up to 100.com domains registered for only $5 each. And so yeah, go out there with this newfound wisdom and apply it in real life and register some new names. We've also got $1 XYZ Wednesdays with all the same terms, no promo code required. And little known, we have $5.50.com transfers, really $5.50 off every transfer. And you can transfer in up to $11,000 in discounts using that promo, no promo code required. So yeah, check that out. And without further ado, we can get into it. Guys, I'm gonna send the link to the chat. If you guys can reshare, that would be great. And then, Adam, once you're ready, I would love to hear a bit about your background, how you got into domaining, and some more about your hustle here.
Sure. So I kind of got into domaining, I'd say, early 2000s, but not heavily. It wasn't my focus. Back then, I started to run a bunch of websites. Most of them funny pictures, jokes, gaming websites. Back then, the internet was a very different place, and there wasn't as much stuff to occupy you there. I don't know if anyone remembers a website called Hamster Dance. It was just a page full of animated GIF hamsters with a tune playing in the background, and that was like the biggest thing on the internet. Everybody forwarded that to everybody, and so you could run a site that just had funny pictures and jokes. People were actually entertained by them back then, and so it was a lot easier to get traffic. It was a lot easier to get ranked in search engines. So at first I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a site like this because I saw some other people running them. So I was looking for domain names, and even back then it was kind of hard to find some decent names. Obviously you try all the big ones first and they're gone, and you're like, wow, there's not a lot out there. But if I can go back in time, I'd be registering a lot of stuff that'd be worth a lot of money, but you don't have that, foresight back then. So anyway, so I started to develop a lot of websites, and I'm thinking, it'd be really cool to have some great names for websites that I wanted to build. And so I started looking at some one-word domain names, and usually it's stuff that was in the kind of like entertainment comedy niche. And I would start emailing people, and say, hey, is this domain for sale? Kind of like what people do in mass today. But, back then I'm just, I was thinking of names and then typing it in and sending it out to people. And every once in a while I'll get a reply, and somebody says, yeah, I'll sell it. And then you ask how much, and maybe just a couple $1,000s for, a one-word name or whatever, if you get lucky. So I bought a couple names like that, like that go along with this niche, whoops.com, because I was thinking of kind of like a funny blooper type website. I sold.
Are you in the entertainment industry? Is that why you registered those kinds of names?
Not really. It just went along with the whole gaming funny pictures thing. I did work for a company that provided information to the commercial industry, TV commercials online. So we had a whole database of everything about every commercial you could think of, and we categorized it. We provided information on it. So I guess in that respect, I was in the entertainment industry. But other than that, I'd go and I'd find names, and then I started to do the auctions, which were pretty cool. But they were always like a side thing for me. Then I got into affiliate marketing, and I started to buy names for my affiliate marketing landing pages that had to do with the stuff I was promoting. With affiliate marketing, you don't necessarily have to have a great domain name because you're just using it as a landing page. But I tried to get names that had to do with the subject matter, because your goal is to get a higher click-through rate on your ads and instill confidence on your landing page. So if you have something like buy-me-speakers.net, you're going to think twice about buying something from there. But if you had buyspeakers.com, you're going to get more clicks on your ads, and you're probably going to get more sales. So I started to buy names specifically for affiliate marketing. But the whole time, it was more of a side thing. I never actively tried to sell my domain names. I just would park them all, and then every once in a while somebody would contact me about a name, and I would usually quote some crazy price, and most of the time they wouldn't take it. But every once in a while, I'd sell some names, and it was never a big thing for me. I saw them as investments that I wanted to hold on to for a long time, and eventually they would mature into valuable assets. So it wasn't until right after COVID that I decided I would actively start listing my names for sale. Part of that was because parking wasn't really doing well anymore. So I started to list on Dan, and first I just had all of them as make offer, and it didn't really do much. And I started to go through my journey of learning how to price domain names, which is very hard to do. And I did a full round of pricing my names. It took a while. I did a lot of research. And then I think just recently again, I went through and repriced them again, and I realized that I did not price a lot of them very good. Some of them were too cheap. Some of them were way too expensive for names that nobody would want now, that were great back in the day, because the whole type of names that people want are very different. Exact Match was huge 15 years ago, and it's still good now, but you don't get, a lot of people bought Exact Match products because they wanted to rank for those products in Google. So you get the exactmatch.com, and you are a shoo-in for getting a really high ranking, usually on the first page, but you can't do that anymore. So they're not as valuable. But I do have a lot of names like that just nobody is going to really want anymore. So I had to price those a bit down.
Well,
And
luckily, relisting and repricing helps jiggle the listing to get them, noticed more, as we talked about the other day. So not the worst thing in the world to have to come in back and reprice them, right?
Right. And it's good because, you learn a lot, and the whole industry changes, and even the niches change, like AI stuff. If you were trying to sell that 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't list it anywhere near as high as you would now. Now, if you had any of that stuff still on the old prices, it would have been gobbled up before you had a chance to change it, probably.
Yeah. And you see this very strongly with the, the Estabot price estimation tools and whatnot. Like those guys, they have a very different keyword set that they're indexing to try to figure out the price. And trends, they move so fast that any of these tools just become completely outdated in a number of years, and they're not, with the latest trends and whatnot. But yeah, so tell me more about this affiliate marketing side of things. It's something I don't understand a ton about, but it seems like that could be the new parking, right? Like, and how does AI and being able to generate, programmatically, enormous like SEO pages just full of content, and then sourcing all the affiliate links to drive traffic there and earn a buck. Like how has that evolved over time, and where do you see that going in the future?
Affiliate marketing has always been around for people who've used that as an alternative to parking, but it's a lot more difficult to do. It's a lot more hands-on because you have to find the exact offer for the traffic that you're getting. A lot of offers won't let you direct link to them, which means you're sending it directly to their offer. You have to actually build the site, even if it's just a gateway page where it just has something, and describes the product, and then they click through it to go to the actual offer or affiliate link. But it's hard. I mean, I've done that with some of my names. I've tried to, and some of them, they were actually working, and then the merchant company said we don't allow direct links, and then they stopped me from doing it. Another one, I have an almost exact match to the company that runs an affiliate program, and they didn't like that. So even though we were both making some good money, they had the singular version and I had the plural version. And after like 2 years in their affiliate program, they suddenly said, "Oh, due to the terms, you're not allowed to, use a domain name that has to do with our name." And I told them, I said, "Look, I said I've owned this name longer than you guys have been in business, and I said we're both making money. I said if you don't allow me to do this, I'm just going to switch it to a competitor, and we're both going to lose out." But they didn't reply. So I just ended up just parking it. I'm not making as much, but I'm actually still getting sales through that. It must have been like old clicks from a long time ago that people were still buying from. So I'm still making money from that affiliate program. So in that case, it worked. But as far as affiliate marketing, what I did, it was totally just pure affiliate marketing. I was looking for products to sell or get leads from, and they pay you for each one, and I would do that, and it was working great. I mean, I did that for probably like 15 years, and the whole landscape changed on how you can buy traffic with Google and Bing, and they became very strict, and it became very hard to get traffic through them, using through a lot of niches, and even the regular niches. It's just, I don't know, they added this quality score metric which made it almost impossible to rank well. So I just got tired of it, and I had done well, and I knew a lot of other affiliates. I would go to a conference called Affiliate Summit every year, and we'd all discuss this stuff, and we were all having the same problems. I mean, I had gotten kicked off of Google AdWords back in 2010, I think, and I just never bothered trying to get back on, because I know that they have a very strict way of keeping you banned. You can't log on from any device that has to do with the device you got banned from, or the account, and then if you do anything, it just instantly triggers a ban again or something. So
You had some salacious affiliate links then if you were getting banned, huh?
Well, you know what it was, and I didn't even know why I got banned. It ended up being some random offer that I ran for like a day or two, which I don't even remember. It had something to do with making money, but I guess it was actively something they didn't like. So it was like a year or two later, after I ran that offer for like 2 days, that they said, "Oh, we're banning you," basically. It was really, really stupid. But so, but I was running a lot of PC optimization software offers, and those can be very tricky, and there's a lot of stuff in the software download space that got just abused, like people offering toolbars, and they basically had not spyware, but I guess kind of like scamware or cookie stealing ware, things like that. But there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of claims that these companies made that weren't exactly true, and they were trying to cut down on that. So it became a lot harder to promote even the legitimate products. But
Right.
But it was good. It got me more domain names. I bought a whole ton of software type names, and I sell some every now and then, because I'm not really.
And I'm sure it helps the resale value having that search authority associated with those names too. So even once they sunset and they're no longer useful for you, they were, you built some equity in that domain.
Yeah. Sometimes it works out that way. Sometimes you just lose it all. Like we were talking about using affiliate offers on names. After I was done running these campaigns, I actually had a lot of these landing pages ranked in the search engines. A lot of times, which was interesting, is they were ranked because I ran ads. So they were ranking the actual ad links and those got indexed. So I had thousands of pages indexed purely because their spider was indexing their ads, and then those were getting put into the search engine. It was kind of crazy. So eventually those, die out over time. But I would just run offers. I would run the same offer or a similar offer on those pages, and they would do well. And I even some of the companies one of the companies that I promoted their offers basically shut down, and their domains expired, and I caught those domain names from expired auctions. So as soon as I got those, I just put up my landing page that I used to promote those products in the first place. Just switched to a similar product, and I started getting sales, and these sales were $30, $40 each. I was getting, each name was doing like, a few sales a week, so that's an extra, $500 a week just from, using affiliate offers on domain names that have built-in traffic.
And so currently, like, what kind of setup is fruitful for trying to spin up an affiliate marketing site on it? Do you need like a really precise keyword domain? Do you need connections to marketplaces or e-commerce sites? Like what are the preconditions that someone should be looking for to pursue this?
Well, I do think you really need to have a domain that already has traffic to it. Otherwise, you're just building a site from scratch, and then it doesn't really matter kind of what domain you have. So you need one with traffic, and then you got to find out what kind of traffic it is, and then you got to find offers for that traffic. And there's a lot of sites out there that are databases of affiliate offers, and they'll tell you what networks that they're on. So you can then sign up with the network and get approved on the network. I mean, it's not too hard. You could just sign up.
You're talking like
networks.
Commission Junction.
Right. Commission Junction is one of them. I don't particularly like Commission Junction because I've been screwed by them in the past. But they're more merchant friendly than affiliate friendly. Like if anything goes wrong, if the merchant says something, they just immediately side with the merchant. So even if it's
what's
not
evolved about affiliate marketing since probably when you were doing it is most of the traffic now comes from social media. A lot of people are driving traffic from Facebook, YouTube, X or wherever, where there's a lot of traffic, and then they drive into this landers, and that's when the conversion happens. Obviously, paid ads are somewhat effective, but the cost of advertising is going up for a lot of keywords. But a lot of that traffic comes from social media, which leads to a point. Social media, I'm assuming back then wasn't really a factor. Do you think social media has improved affiliate marketing or sort of like watered it down?
Oh, I think it's improved a lot of different ways to market. I mean, there was Facebook back then. Facebook ads was one of the platforms you could use that came out. And it was very effective for a lot of different products because you could really fine tune on exactly who you want to target. But for me, it wasn't good for my kind of products that I was doing. I did run some stuff on Facebook ads, and they did okay. But I knew people who ran stuff that were making tons of money. The problem with Facebook ads is that you end up basically showing your ads to the same people over and over again. There's not a lot of new faces once you've already hit that whole demographic. So you had to keep switching your ads. And it was a lot of work. It wasn't something that you could just set and forget. You had to change your ads all the time. Now with social marketing, what's around now, I mean, there are people who just make their livings off of this. The people with all the different social marketing accounts, TikTok accounts and Instagram, they're Instagram famous, and they just run an ad for some kind of product, and just one ad makes them a ton of cash. But you can do that only if you have a big audience. But that's only one way you can do it. You can still target large amounts of people through the ad systems. I know X has ads you can promote with, and I think all the other ones do too. So and there's a lot of great offers for that stuff. And you don't even need a domain name for that unless you are targeting them to your website.
Right. And how do you see, you mentioned that putting up these sites is fairly labor intensive. How do you see AI being able to automate a lot of that? I remember meeting someone at ICA in Vegas in January who was trying to do exactly this. They had built out, I don't know, a Visit Puerto Rico site or something like that. and had generative content about all the best restaurants and which tourist attractions to see and everything, and then dropped the links for various touring companies and whatnot with their affiliate codes attached to them. So is there an API for these affiliate sites? Like, can you just spin up an agent to mass manufacture these sites at this point?
I mean, a lot of the affiliate companies for ages used to provide landing pages that you could use of their own if you wanted to. I'm not sure how effective that is, because if a lot of people are using the same landing page, it's probably not going to rank very well. But now that with AI, you can just go into Bolt or Grok or anywhere and just say, create me a website that has this and this and this, and it doesn't need to be anything crazy. It could make a nice site, and then you could add your affiliate links.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just getting better and better. I don't know if they have an API. I'm sure they do have APIs you could do site creation with that'll work for this stuff. I don't think the affiliate companies themselves offer that, but you don't need them to, because you can just do it on your own. It's not something that I've tried yet. I've only dabbled in sites with AI, but I've seen what other people have done, and it's really cool. I still like buying completed scripts for now, just because they've already been tested. And
what do you mean by completed scripts?
So for instance, let's say you wanted to sell stuff on eBay and Amazon. You can buy complete scripts that let you set up a website, and it will display items from eBay and Amazon that you get to choose the categories on your website, and it automatically generates all the pages for it. So everything's already done, and it's got the database, it's got whatever. So you just basically, and they have a basic design, and you can change the design how you want it to. So you can, I used to run sites like this. Like, one of the names I sold recently, NESgames.com. I used to sell Nintendo games on it through eBay. So you go to the site, and it was running an eBay script, and it would basically list all the different categories of the games, the consoles, and it would get search engine traffic, and people would go and they would click on it, and it would take them to eBay. If they go Nintendo 64 games, then it'll pull up all the Nintendo 64 games on eBay. And if they buy through one of those links, I get money based on how much they paid for those games. And back then, eBay offered $25 for every new member that you get signed up through your link. And there weren't a lot of people on eBay back then. It was still kind of new. So it was a pretty good program, but that's an example of a script. The script basically handled all of that. All I had to do is input the categories, add my little design, my header, the colors, things like that, and then it was up and running. So
yeah. So bring us back to your domain, like how this ties into your domain hustle. Like, how would you describe your domain strategy as it's evolved over the years? From this affiliate marketing focus to now, being an opportunist.
Right. I would go in and out with domain names every once in a while. Back in the day, I'd be like, okay, I feel like working on domain names again. So I'd start buying names. I'd start doing the auctions. And then it would fall off because I'd be focusing on affiliate marketing again. So I would kind of put domains on the side, wouldn't really worry about them. And then I'd come back to them later. And then I think I got into them seriously in like 2020, right after COVID started. I started to say, okay, I'm going to really focus on domain names now, because I'm not doing affiliate marketing anymore, and I got to do something with my time. So, why not domain names? So I started to go through the auctions really heavily. I even did Mike Seiger's Domain Academy course. I felt like I knew a lot of stuff about domain names already, but when I took the course, and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't really know much about this. And he has a whole thing on valuating domain names, how to value, which is what I really wanted it for. So I practiced that a lot. And
what was your biggest takeaways from that module?
It was it was learning how to look at all the aspects of a domain name for pricing. It was kind of what types of names are the names you should go for, and even then it's still a continual learning experience, because I've learned a lot since doing that, and it's just really from experience, just diving into the domain industry and constantly looking at names and trying to value them. A good practice is when you're looking to buy domain names, just start pricing them. Look at the different metrics of them. How many TLDs are registered for that domain name? How many companies are using that name or have it in their name? How many searches are people doing? And that's just a partial way to price it. You can look at other sales of similar names and see how much those went for. And it's not even all that, because I've used all those metrics and I priced the name thinking, well, this would actually be the highest name sold if it's sold, with these words in it, and this. But then you realize you're not looking at the whole picture. It's like, sure, this keyword is only sold for this much, and this keyword is only sold for this much. I put those two keywords together, it actually makes it a lot more valuable, rather than looking at the individual keywords and seeing how much each one has sold for in the past. So, and trends have changed too. So the trends are a lot higher now for those keywords than they were 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's non-linear. It's not just simple math. You have to have some taste to be able to assess it. Have you used this Agent.ai domain valuation tool?
Yeah, I've dabbled with it. I tried a couple of names.
It's fairly robust, at least. It has a lot of inputs that it thinks about. And if anything, it's just a nice rubric that you can use for yourself, even if the values that it submits for each of those criterion aren't, perfectly calibrated to what a good domainer might answer for each of them. But it has a lot of things that you were just talking about. So obviously like search volume, although Zero, I think again, like here we have topologicalchips.com, and this refers to like Microsoft's topological quantum chip that came out a few months ago, and so Zero, that's probably spiked up pretty recently. I wonder if we can do Google Trends to take a look, but you also have, like .db stats of how many extensions it's in, and yeah, if anything, it's just a good way to cover all your bases, so you're thinking about everything that you need to think about as it pertains to a particular domain.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that there's so many of these new tools that are coming out. They're not the only ones. They're probably one of the best ones right now, but there's a lot of other tools that people are trying. I don't think they'll ever peg it exactly, but it's a good guide you could use for, just getting an idea. You might not even realize that a certain keyword or combination of keywords means anything. And then when you run it on that, it starts giving a high valuation. You're like, why is it doing that? And that gets you to look into it a bit further and go, oh, I didn't realize. Like that domain, I didn't know about the topological, like that didn't occur to me at all. Just because I'm not following that space as closely. But, somebody who would know that. But I guess in this case it doesn't qualify because it didn't really show up on that tool either. But for a lot of words it will do that. And, it's just another thing you can have in your toolbox to help you, valuation.
Yeah,
Domain names.
and there's probably a sweet spot where you want to hit. You want to be early, right? Like you don't want to buy. Maybe you do want if you're playing it safe and just want to buy some premium names that you can be very certain are gonna sell later on. Then you're fine with buying a name that has 100 other TLDs registered for that keyword. But if you're trying to like dominate a vertical and you feel like you're early and you have like substantial edge, then what you actually want to be buying is a keyword where there's only a handful of TLDs registered, but you have it on good authority that that particular industry is going to pop like topological chips, let's say. Do you think is that hubris, or do you think people should just stick to, buying something premium that is going to flip?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a strategy, going out and trying to pick up the trends before they become big trends. I know people who do that. Some of them are very successful. Some of them, you can see them on Name Pros all the time, where they list their domain names. Like something pops up, and then there's like someone goes out and registers 50 of them, and you're like looking at those names, like these are never going to sell. Who's ever going to buy these names? So, but if you're good at it and you're, like I have a friend who's reading up on this stuff like years before they become big, and he registers them back then. He was big in NFTs before NFTs were big. He did stuff like 4K TV. He AI. He had a bunch of AI names before, and he sells them for good money. I mean, all his names are hand registration. He sold names for like $70,000. Just from a hand reg from a few years ago. So
Wow.
if you do your research and you know where to look, it's very successful.
The coveted hand reg flip that
Yeah.
so few domainers actually get to experience. Most of them are just garbage. So what sets that guy apart? Is he a technologist? Is he a hacker? Like, is he just on the cutting edge of this
No.
stuff? Or is it the information diet? Like, what's his edge?
Yeah, he's into the information. He's following the people on X that are in the space, and talk about the stuff before it becomes big. He's always doing a lot of research on whatever he's interested in. He's always looking for the new big thing that comes out based on the news sources that he's reading and the people that he's following. I think it's more about, because if it's in the news, it's probably already too late. That's the thing. It's about before it gets in the news. So you gotta,
Yeah.
I guess, be listening to the people who are cutting edge in various spaces, like if you're doing technology, the technological space. And when they start talking about something that they're working on or may be big in a few years, that's when you start working on it. Because then when it becomes big, people have already gotten most of the domain names for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. I can feel better about wasting many hours of my life going down Twitter rabbit holes because I can just chalk that up as research.
Yes.
Staying on the cutting edge. But I gotta get into deeper and deeper rabbit holes to actually find that edge. Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, on the topic of like feeling late, you mentioned in your opening spiel that you thought you were late to domains in 2008 or whenever you started getting into it. And of course, hindsight is 2020, and turns out you were still extremely early. Do you think we're still early now? Or do you think the market's too efficient and this is really just the end of days? I mean, it's okay to tell people that are starting out in domaining that you shouldn't get started out in domaining. That would be potentially the most valuable advice that they should hear. So don't be afraid to tell them what you really think.
Right. There's always opportunities, and the opportunities that were available back in the day aren't available now. Like registering great .coms with ease. You could still hand register .coms that end up being big, but once again, that takes a lot of research. Instead of just going, I just want to register shoes.com, because it's 1996 and no one's gotten it yet, and I have foresight. But it's there. I mean, you have all the other TLDs right now, and people would say, these TLDs are worthless. .com is king, and sure, .com is king, and that's always the top extension that you're going to want. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to want the other extensions or are not going to buy them. And you see this in the market. People are buying all these different extensions. I mean, think of .ai. It's been around forever, and it had an expensive renewal cost. But if you thought about it and you felt that it was going to be a valuable extension in the future, you could have bought that, pretty late. I mean, you could have been buying these AI names less than 10 years ago, and you could be very well off with them nowadays. So think of all the other potential extensions out there right now that could turn into something big. Most of them probably won't. You had IO, you had CO, you had XYZ. There's a lot of these extensions that became big after the fact, and it's possible that some of these other extensions that are out right now, the same thing is going to happen to them. So we're VC is another one that people, and I'm not saying these are huge. It's just they do get sales, and and the only reason they're getting sales is because they were adopted to a certain niche, like .vc is venture capitalists. .io is, I think, stands for input output, which is used by a lot of technological companies. .ai obviously is artificial intelligence. .co got advertised as a alternative to .com, and they were successful in that. And XYZ became adopted to Web3 crypto. So in .gg for games. So some of these are really successful. Some of them aren't as successful, but they still get a lot. They still get sales, and they're known for what niche they represent. So who knows if any of the other extensions it's going to happen with. People are trying to force the narrative on these. Like I see people with .ml, it's like, oh, machine learning, or .si, super intelligence. But I just don't see those picking up because they're not a main term that people use. You have .ai, and that kind of encompasses all those, machine learning, super intelligence. It's just part of the regular vocabulary, and people don't use those other terms. So I don't really see that happening. But there will be other extensions that people will pick up on, and so your opportunity is there if you could find out which ones are going to be the ones that are going to be seen as valuable in the future.
Yeah. Welcome back, Ish.
Yes.
Yeah. Here is a great graphic
We had
that
a Wi-Fi outage.
Yeah, no worries. You're a little glitchy there, but glad to have you back. Adam, here's a tweet that I saw. This was Braden Pollock had a little thread on this, basically talking about you need to balance and pair the SLD with the TLD, and just like with VC, it's very niche. You're not going to get like shoes.vc is maybe interesting, but probably not the greatest match. You want something like technologically oriented to align with the utility of a .vc domain. And in that thread, NameGroove here shared a fascinating piece of data from Adam that showed the number of TLDs taken versus each TLD that was sold on their marketplace. And you can tell that .coms that get sold on their marketplace on average don't need very many other TLDs registered. But by contrast, more esoteric TLDs like .vc, .in, .ly, .gg, these keywords need a ton of TLDs to be taken in order for them to be attractive enough to actually be registered. So it's just this beautiful like trade-off that you're seeing between the quality of the TLD and the quality of the SLD that's just like beautifully linear in this chart, and it speaks to exactly what you're talking about.
Right. I remember seeing that a long time ago, and I loved that chart. I mean, that actually made me think a lot more about my purchases when I saw that. And of course, there's always outliers. Like I've sold some other extensions that didn't have a lot of TLDs, SLDs taken. But for the most part, I do look at that when I'm buying new names in other TLDs.
Which are your favorite TLDs, if you don't mind us asking?
Favorite as in most successful?
Favorite alternatives.
I mean, obviously the ones that sell the best. But I mean, I have a special place for .gg just because I love gaming. I've been in gaming my whole life. I don't think GG sells is great, and it's kind of expensive, but I've been focusing. I mean, I probably have like 30 or 40 .ggs, and I try to go for like game related terms or really strong keywords. So, but I haven't sold a .gg in years. So, but I price the good ones pretty high, and, and I'll just sit on them. But you can't do that with too many of them because it does get expensive. VC, I usually sell, one or two a year, and I usually sell them for 5 figures. So those do pretty well. I have a lot of good .cos. I like CO a lot. They haven't been selling as well lately as like .io, even though .io has gone down a lot because of AI. But .co has had its day, and I think it's kind of a standard out there, an alternative for .com. So I like that. And I do dabble in .app here and there. I've sold a few small sales with that. And org I've been picking up recently. I think org is making a nice comeback. So,
Right.
so yeah, and
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 then you
IO
see,
I
like-
think it's
And then you see like .sos getting some traction. Ish, you're breaking out really bad.
If you
Really can't hear you, Ish.
yeah. We're
Sorry,
doing a
man.
robot.
Yeah.
You might need to find a better place to call in from. But
I'm gonna.
Yeah, .so I've heard about that. I think it stands for social. I think that's what they're trying to repurpose it as.
really, okay,
I think.
interesting. Because like
Yeah.
Cursor, the IDE, the AI powered text editor, that was Cursor.so to begin with.
Right.
But there's no real social aspect to that app, so
Yeah, I don't know.
it just it sounds nice. It's simple.
Right.
But one of those ones that it seems it's very questionable when you see it. But who knows? All it takes is like just some trend, some tech guys decide all have a shelling point on a single TLD, and then overnight it could turn into something big. So
Right. You just need one big website. Remember .fun? That's recently
yeah.
got shot up.
exactly.
Because
That's an excellent example. And now you see just a ton of crypto startups using the .fun. Anything in the meme space, we've seen a ton of adoption for. We actually had an initiative where we were trying to, maybe I shouldn't drop this alpha live on the stream, but we were looking at new meme coins that were being minted on Solana or wherever, and then we were minting the ticker .fun, and then listing on the marketplace to try to drive them to our marketplace to come buy it. So in the same way that people scour like Crunchbase and look for new VC funding, there's thousands of meme coins launched every day that you could be selling .funds to. So go out there and register some .funds, kid. We also have, I think we're doing like $1 .funds now at Unstoppable.
Wow.
So it's worth a little gamble on them for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on, if you were running a registry, which TLDs would you apply for in next year's application round? Do you have any like pet TLDs that you think would take over if they were, enshrined in ICANN?
Oh, I mean, I'd be going for the big like .crypto, .wallet. I would want those, of course.
Wow, you have excellent taste, Adam. Where'd you come up with those TLDs?
Well, I wonder. But yeah, I think a lot of extensions, most of them are kind of failures. If you think about it, of all the applied extensions from the last round, how many of them are big now? It's XYZ,
Yeah.
an app. Are there any others that even do like okay? There's really not a lot out there. So
That's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, some of them do make sales and stuff, but they're not big, unless they match very well with the SLD. Like if it doesn't matter what it is, like .horse. Everybody jokes around .horse, but if you have race.horse, it's pretty good. I would.
Yeah.
People would pay money for that. Or maybe the breeds of horses. But there's probably very very few combinations that are going to be worthwhile, and you could find out with any TLD. So in those cases, those are the valuable names. But other than that, I don't think people are using them for too much. So I wouldn't be somebody who would be applying for any new extensions right now, I would rather go for a company code, a company, a company SLD, TLD that exists, and like they did with .co, and basically run an advertising campaign, repurpose it, make a deal with the country, say, I want to, do this. Because I think 2-letter TLDs are still like really good. 3-letter I think is pretty much as high as you want to go. Anything after 3 letters is going to be really tough to get popular. I don't think it's really happened yet. So, I think .wallet would. I think .crypto would. I think those would be very successful, and those are more than 3 letters, but those are extreme circumstances, And I don't even know if those are. I mean, are you applying for those?
We can't say,
Okay.
but we will be at the next application round, certainly. So yeah, I think there's a lot of buzz around AI names too. I think .agent will probably get some attention. I think several people have come out for .anime, going after that one. I feel like there's maybe some like gene editing ones or biosciences. I mean, .bio is a nice TLD that we don't see too much of, but and maybe that has a resurgence in the future as CRISPR matures and we see more gene editing come to the fore. Nanotechnology, we're still quite a ways away from that. Quantum computing, again, very speculative.
Yeah.
Fusion
But all these
power.
extensions, though, there's not a lot of end users for them. You have to have a site that's specifically about that topic, and you can kind of use any extension for that. It needs to be something really broad, like a whole category of like you have technology for .io and crypto for XYZ, and that just encompasses a whole field. So
Yeah.
of stuff that can be anything, because it's not just crypto is everything. It's not just coins. It's the technology. It's the blockchain. Something like Nano would just have to do
Very esoteric, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you appreciate how generic and beautiful .xyz is. It's so final. It rolls off the tongue. It's just very aesthetic. .abc doesn't have the same quality to it, but
That would be
and
interesting if there was an ABC. I think
is there a .web? .web feels nice.
there's a whole thing about .web. They were trying to. There's a story between multiple companies trying to get .web, and something kind of shady happened behind the scenes, like with ICANN, and it got
Always
blocked. And now I don't know if it's going to come up again. I mean, at this point, I think web's kind of a downgraded keyword term. It's you used to be able to see a lot of websites that had web in the name, like techweb.com or fixweb or whatever, just anything they would just tack web on. But web seems like an old way to call the internet now. So
Yeah.
I think as an extension,
But
it would be
it's
fine.
kind of retro like .net, it has this vibe to it.
Yeah, it's funny. .net and .net seems like a great TLD. It used to be the main one. I remember I used to use an internet company called Gate.net, and there was another one, Mindspring.net. I think they were on a net too, or something similar to that. And net. Everybody thought net was going to be the big TLD back then, but .com just took over and pushed net aside. And then organizations, and I still have people to this day who think you have to be a legitimate organization to own a .org. My wife thought that until just recently, and other people that I've talked to recently also thought that you had to have an organization.
It was like a .gov or a .edu.
Right.
I mean, did it have that distinction for a while? Is that why people got
I don't think it did.
confused?
I don't think there was any limitations on.
It still would be just weird to run a porn site on .org, Like,
Yeah.
it feels like you're masquerading as something you're not. I
Well,
know in
people running
crypto and
crypto
tech,
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, but they often reserve the .orgs for the like non-profit foundations that are behind a lot of the open source protocols. And so there is some semblance of neutrality and, not-for-profit aim that is encapsulated in those use cases. So it is curious, but it does have a very formal, humanitarian ring to it. And I think discerning people would be offended if you were, hijacking that for your own nefarious purposes for whatever application.
Yeah.
You bring up the most critical point in all of this, which is that the real winner of that GTLD round was VeriSign with .com, and just their continued dominance. So, still quite a lot of money to be made with new TLDs, but hard to beat the king and the network effects there. So GoDID Go has a question. Do you outbound your domains? That's a big theme on our channel with Ish doing his outbounding. So yeah, tell us, do you have any experience there?
No, I've never, because I have such a laid back view of selling my domain names, because I see them as, long-term investments, and it's not my main.
You weren't
source
even
of
trying to
income.
sell them initially. So
Yeah.
You of all people have the most
Right.
laissez-faire attitude.
Right. I just sit back, and if they sell, they sell. If they don't, they don't. And I know a lot of people can't do that. So I think outbounding is great. Ish has shown he's done very well with outbounding, and I know Bruce, who you just had on recently last week. Bruce is the master at that, and it's a great way to sell names. It's not for everybody. For me, my personality, I don't think I'd be very good at it. So
Too
and it's
lazy,
just-
you like me?
Well, I am lazy, but that's not the reason why. I'm just probably not. I guess I'm more of an introvert. So I love just sitting at my computer, don't have to deal with anybody, just
Sure.
chill out. Maybe over email it's fine, but I don't want to make phone calls all day. And I know you can do it through text too, but I think I've tried to outbound a couple names in my last 20 years, just a couple of them. I don't think they panned out, but obviously need to do a lot more than just send a couple of emails. But it's a great way to sell names, and it works for a lot of good names. I think it's the best for small price names, maybe getting onto the medium, because you want to target like geo companies. Those are some of the best ones you can target. Big names, if you have really good names, you probably want to get a broker for that, because they know what they're doing and they have all the connects. They know who to talk to. But that's really all I know. I don't know too much else about outbounding. So
Yeah, I hear
the
you.
total opposite of outbounding.
Let me answer some other questions here while we got them. Adrian asks if we're going to put more focus on auctions at Unstoppable. It's certainly on the roadmap. We want to get to that next quarter. I know this is a big vector that domainers use to both acquire and liquidate domains. So we know it's a big deal. We're looking at integrating some auctions APIs, both expireds and regular auctions, just to give people more choice and more exposure when they're both buying and selling on Unstoppable. Let's see. Otherwise, so Adam, can you tell us a bit about like your current domaining hustle, like how, or even walk us through a case study? I saw you had a sale that had a 4-month hold time. Was it earlier this month? Maybe you could walk us through that, if you don't mind.
4-month hold time.
Let me try to find the tweet.
Which name that is. Let's see.
February 25th. I feel like we're in a deposition right now. Did you or did you not tweet on February 25th, 2025
Guilty.
that you sold Spend.co for $12,995? Did
Yes.
you, sir?
Yes. That's an interesting one because I still haven't gotten paid for that yet. So
Oh.
this actually goes along with something that I'm doing now with landing pages. because that name was under a 60-day lock. So I bought that name whenever, and then I transferred it. I held on to it for a little bit, thinking, spend.com just sold, so maybe there'll be some interest in it.co. So I waited a bit. I didn't have anybody interested. So I'm like, okay, let me just transfer it because I consolidate all my names. So I transferred it, and of course, a couple weeks after I transferred it, somebody buys it. And because unlike Dan, who they just push it to an account on whatever registrar it is, to the new owner, Afternic doesn't do that. So Afternic took like a week and a half to get information from them, and they said the buyer is going to wait until the lock is off, and then they'll buy it, which is going to happen in a few days. So we'll see if that actually happens in a few days, if the sale goes through or not.
Right. So help explain the Dan process, because they have an escrow account at Dan for each of these partner registrars on the Afternic network.
Well, they
And
have
then-
an account. They have
Sure.
just I guess you call it escrow account. Yeah, they register an
Yeah.
account for every registrar, and that way, if somebody, wherever the domain is at, if it can't be transferred, or if they'd rather have it pushed to their account. A lot of people do, because it saves time. They just push it in, but Afternic doesn't do that. Even though they bought Dan, that was one of Dan's best features, and they always say.
But
that,
so the buyers at Namecheap or wherever else, and then they're notified that like, hey, the domain is waiting for you at Dan, and then like, how does that work? Because Namecheap obviously they want the domain to come back to Namecheap. So I don't know how Namecheap would be fine with sending their customer to Dan, or whether they just tell the customer, hey, it's going to be waiting for the next 2 months and tough shit, and then we'll bring it to you once that ends. Like, how did that work on the buyer side?
Well, Dan itself wasn't a registrar. They didn't have any names on their platform. They just listed names. So for instance, if I have a domain name and it's at Namecheap and it sells, the buyer on Dan has the option of having the domain name transferred to whatever registrar they want, or you could just push the name on Namecheap. Dan will do that. Dan has an account on Namecheap, so I push
see.
my name into
Okay.
into Dan's account on Namecheap, and then they push it into the buyer's account. Now that obviously works if there's a 60-day lock. So if I'm on Namecheap, the domain name, and there's a 60-day lock, then the buyer can only get it on Namecheap unless they wait 60 days. So Dan will tell them, if you don't have an account, make an account on Namecheap, and then we will push the domain to you on Namecheap, and you'll get it. So that gets around a 60-day lock. And that was standard for Dan. Dan would do that all the time. Afternic doesn't do that. So if you sell a name that has a lock.
And this is why. It's because they're a registrar and they want the
Right.
domain to come back to them.
Right.
So yeah,
But
that's what I was
they're
missing.
losing. Yeah, but they're losing a lot of sales that way, because there are a lot of people who don't want to wait and just say, okay, I don't want to do the sale anymore. So what I've been doing now, and it doesn't happen very often. I think this is probably the first time that I've sold a name after a transfer lock. But I figure, I don't want to risk it, so I just started to point any of my names that have a transfer lock to a separate landing page. Like I'm using Domain Easy, but you could use anything you want to do.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, Unstoppable works also. And there's Atom, and there's Name Pros. They have all these different ones. And I think all of those do push. So I think basically Afternic's one of the only ones that doesn't do the push transfer. And then if it sells, you have no problems. If it doesn't sell, once the lock's gone, then you can switch it back to your Afternic landing page, or whatever else you had it before.
Yeah.
And then it's fine. I don't think you need to worry about it if it's on GoDaddy though, because like you said, that's their registrar. So if you win a name in GoDaddy auctions and it has a 60-day transfer lock, but it's at GoDaddy, then you don't have to worry about that, because if it does sell within the 60 days, they will just push it to their account on GoDaddy, because to buy a name, you actually have to have a GoDaddy account. So
Right.
there's no problems there.
How was your experience self-brokering on any platform? You know, you mentioned you're an introvert. How did you find yourself making missteps early on, handling those conversations, or yeah, would you prefer to leave it to the pros for the most part? I mean, what's your stance there?
I didn't mind. I mean, that's easy stuff. You know, brokering, like, when I say I'm an introvert, you know, I'm like, I just like my peace and quiet, and, you know, I love people and everything like that, but I like
Yeah.
my quiet time, and I would rather, you know, not have to deal with, you know, constantly, you know, talking to people throughout the whole day to get things done when I could just, you know, do my own thing. But brokering
It is exhausting
is fine.
trying to coax someone else into doing something all day long.
Yes.
You sell a little bit of your soul when you're a salesman.
But with Dan, I mean, I did all that myself, you know, because it was basically a self-brokering platform. So I'd have people contact me about names, and then we'd go back and forth on the price, and I would sell it that way, and that was fine. I had no, you know, issues with that, and it worked out well. And I don't know how much better or worse I do compared to maybe, you know, a GoDaddy broker, or, you know, what you get on Afternic. So, you know, there's been a lot of complaints about how the brokers are lately on there, and it's probably because they're overwhelmed, because when they switched over, when they closed down Dan and they switched over without self-brokering as an option, there probably were so many more requests coming in that
Yeah.
they kind of had to, you know, quickly deal with them, as opposed to focusing more of their attention on those. So they do have the self-brokering platform now, and you know, it's not a thing that I've messed with. I'm probably not going to, because most of my names now are just buy it now. I don't really have many make offer names. The only ones that I do, I put on another platform, because they're my potentially higher selling names. And if people want those names, they're not going to find them through the search path. They're going to actually go to the names and, you know, see about them. So there's really no reason to give a large portion of commission up for sales that really aren't benefiting at all from, you know, anything that Afternic offers, except for their name, their brand, because the brand is very important. You know, people know GoDaddy, so they're going
Yeah.
to feel a lot more comfortable buying a name from GoDaddy than from some, you know, random sales site. So you do get that benefit as well.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Circling back, we had some questions about EMDs from your affiliate stuff.
Yep.
Michael Oliver asks, what about renting out redirects of EMDs to companies that focused on branding irrelevant words?
Branding irrelevant words. Well, I know they have ZeroClick, which is where you can just buy traffic. And there were platforms, and I think there still are, that you can choose the domain names on the platform that you want to buy traffic from. So you can find names that are similar to the niche that you want, and then you just buy the traffic. You're basically paying for impressions. So they do have that. You know, there's always risks involved with leasing out your traffic, because you don't know who's buying it on the other end a lot of the time, or what they're going to do with it, and they could ruin your domain reputation. So
Right.
yeah, that happens.
He
with
also
platforms.
says he thinks Shopify, eBay guys completely miss the benefit of EMDs, especially as we decentralize away from these platforms. Anyways, yeah, so cat.crypto asks, tell us more about your current domaining hustle, Adam. You know, as much as you're willing to share, of course. You know, can you tell us about certain verticals that you're looking at? And are you just scouring expireds? Are you hanging out in like premium.co's like we saw with Spend? You know, what's your strategy nowadays at a high level?
Basically, I search through the expired lists every few days. You know, I use expireddomains.net, which is the best resource out there. And I have my pre-made lists that I go through. I have like a list for .coms, I have a list for .orgs, COs, IOs, and I just go through those lists. And I don't really have any kind of niche that I go for. There are ones that I know more of. So if I spot a word in something that I know, I might notice it where other people might not. But I'm not looking for any specific niche. I just go through and I look at the names and see which ones look like, they're going to be valuable. And, I mark them for when the auctions go on and then put them on a watch list. And when the auctions happen, I usually just get outbid because the prices are crazy these days. But I've found myself, because of that, I've been buying a lot more non.com names. So I've increased .cos a lot. I never had a lot of .ios because of their cost, but I have been buying some lately, and I've been buying some other alternate TLDs. And then I realized that I'm probably buying more than I should. I should go back to .coms, and maybe pay a little extra, because paying a little extra now is going to benefit me in a few years when the price is just going to keep going up. So the last several auctions that I won, most of them were .coms, so I felt good about that. And I even got like offers on some, like one or two of them, like within a week of buying them. So that was good. So I knew I was on the right track. But yeah, I mean, I'll just do that every few days. I'll look at the lists, put them all, the names I'm interested in my watch list, monitor the auctions every day. There's also some that I don't notice that there's a lot of interest in. I'm like, why is there interest in this domain name? A lot of times it's just a traffic domain name, which means it had a lot of backlinks and people are buying it for SEO purposes. But sometimes it's some kind of keyword that I didn't realize. And I'm like, oh, I'll research it more. And, if I find it interesting, I might try to jump in on the auction or not. I'll spend a bit more on names. I won't, there's a lot of people who buy a lot of the names without competition, and people resell them for like 2K each or whatever. I tried that for a bit. I just didn't have the patience for it. I kind of see domain investing as collecting as well. I'm a big collector. I don't know if you see behind me, I have a bunch of old Steins. They're like 100 years old each, and I collect tons.
You sound like an NFT bag holder right now. Careful.
Yes,
with your
I am a
words.
huge. I got caught holding bags.
Don't become a community member.
Yes. See, that's my problem. That's why I'm not good with certain things like NFTs, because I don't know when to sell them. I just like holding on to them. But domain names are great for it, because the longer you hold on to them, they seem to be the better they do. So
Truly.
And I love owning certain names. I mentioned this before, I think, on Ish's session, but it's like when you own a .com of a word, it's like you own that word. That's your word. The whole world, you own that word. So it's neat. It's like a flex. It's street cred when you own certain words. You go, oh yeah, I own so-and-so.com, or I own, like, imagine AI.com. Yeah, I own AI.com. That's like a huge flex. So it's kind of fun to own them as well. So in that way, I feel like I don't mind if they don't sell, because I still get to enjoy owning the names, and I know that they're still a great investment and they're worth money. Of course, I said that about NFTs, and look what happened there. So, but I think domain names, I think we all could agree that domain names, at least for as long as we could imagine it, maybe another 10, 20 years, I don't see anything changing with domain names. So I don't.
You don't see any threats from AI, from generative engine optimization on the horizon for domains?
I don't know. I just think we still use phone numbers. We've been using phone numbers for 100 years, and nothing's changed other than how the phone numbers are structured and how we access of phone numbers, like different phone systems like cellular and satellite phone and landline. Landline is getting phased out. Everything is cellular now. So, but you still need those phone numbers. And then they added their new TLDs. You had the 1-800 numbers. That's .com. And then you have 888 and 826 or whatever. Those are the other extensions. And so 800 is king, but you still have all the other extensions that people want or people need. And that whole system still exists. So I think with the internet, as far as I can see, I don't see domain names going away. I could see the emphasis on getting to the website through a different method, like going through AI. Search engines have kind of hijacked how you find a website. It used to be you just type it into bar. Now they're trying to make it so you type it into their search bar, and then it gives you results, and it usually gives that domain name as the first result after the ads. So they get to show their ads at the results. And then sometimes when you type in a domain name in the bar, it'll try to suggest another one. Like I mentioned nesgames.com. I was curious if they had done anything with it yet. It's too soon. But when I type in nesgames.com in my browser bar and hit enter, it says, I don't think you want to go to that site. Are you looking for this site instead? And there was another site that had a different 3 letters, like nsomethings.com, games.com, that I guess was a popular site. So it was already trying to redirect me from going to NES Games to some other site. So they are, the way to get to your domain, to your website is different, the path that you take there. But you still need that endpoint. And it's still going to be branding. I think, how more memorable and the confidence that it gives the visitor who visits the site is still extremely important. When people are creating venture capital companies, they're looking for good brands, and a lot of things that these companies will do is to buy the .com right before requesting funding from VCs, because they need that confidence, to exude, so that the VCs will look at it and say, oh yeah, this is a legit company. They mean business, as opposed to it just being on some random TLD. They may not invest in it because they think, well, they don't even have a good domain name. Why am I going to invest in this company? So
yeah, there's two sides to this argument, and I keep flip-flopping back and forth between them. The nihilistic everything goes to zero argument is, okay, we're already seeing websites and Google traffic go down precipitously. Like Stack Overflow, for example, saw visits plummet because everyone's using ChatGPT to code for them now, which looks up all these answers, or just already has it embedded in the model to spit out whatever answer you need. And just like Perplexity or ChatGPT, like indexes all these websites and then formats the response in exactly the form you want it. It's like the internet is liquefying. It's like this clay that AI is like molding directly into the shape that you need for your particular question, for your particular problem. And so this old paradigm of like static, not even static, but even like dynamic web pages, where you have to navigate around and you have to sift through all this content to find that one little tidbit that you need, is really archaic in this new world that we're living in. And so, if all that matters is the interface, the AI interface, and the data, and then everything else in between gets liquefied and turned into clay, then do you really need domains? And then, one other thing to add on to that is like, when you have agents, like, are agents going to be registering domains? Are agents legally allowed to register domains? Those are enormous question marks. One beautiful thing about crypto, and terrifying thing about crypto, is that we've created this unstoppable money that now AI can use for whatever its intents are. You can't censor it from the blockchain. You can't prevent it. You can't KYC it necessarily, because it can do all these things permissionlessly by tapping into these open networks. And so you can expect the same evolution in domains, right? It's like, why would we have this gate-kept process where every TLD is like enshrined in the set, and you have to KYC and you have to pay registration fees? An AI agent is gonna lean towards an open system where they can move at the speed of code and not be bogged down by 60-day transfer locks and all this other human friction in the way. So those are 2 points on the everything goes to zero camp. And then the other side of it is exactly what you're saying, which is, okay, so what, the internet gets liquefied, the reason, one of the main reasons domains have value today is because it's just a shelling point. Like we could all decide tomorrow collectively .coms no longer have value and .gg is now the canonical thing, but it's a really hard coordination problem to move everyone over to that new paradigm. And instead the safe bet is to say, okay, well, com is king, and therefore if you paid a lot for the domain, then it's trustworthy content. And so it's this feedback loop of like Google upranking expensive domains because there's a vested interest in not having scammy content on that domain, and it just feeds back on itself and pushes the prices ever higher. It's just the shelling point that everyone coalesces to, and you would expect a Perplexity to do the same thing, to uprank their search results coming from expensive domains, whether it's SEO or whether it's GEO. Like you have the same utility of a domain providing skin in the game and authenticity and a brand upon which the value of the content can be proxied. So yeah, I flip back and forth. I have no clue, but the world is changing rapidly. So best not strong opinions weakly held.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
things are changing so fast that who knows what's going to happen. It's just, all you can do is not put all your eggs in one basket and,
Yeah.
keep your mind open for all the new stuff that's coming out.
Exactly. Well, Adam, we've been at this for almost an hour and a half now. So let me take one last question here in the chat. Jakic asks, do we have Ledger hard wallet integration with Unstoppable? Yes, we do. You can use it through MetaMask or any of your other third-party wallets. But I would suggest actually using our built-in Light wallet, which allows you to not have to sign each individual transaction and also gives you recovery options. Overall, it's just a much smoother experience to use our marketplace with our built-in wallet, which is why we built it in the first place. So, Joe Schmo without any crypto experience can use Unstoppable and not need to bat an eye. Adam, have you used Unstoppable yet?
Not yet. Now, it's interesting. I always had a little beef with Unstoppable. Let me explain this.
Ooh.
This is back in the
let's dig
day.
in.
This is back
Juicy.
in the day. Well, it all had to do with...
This is an intervention, actually, Adam. I staged this whole thing.
So
I'm bringing in the rest of my team right now.
it actually has to do with Handshake. So
Mm.
I remember the battle between Handshake and Unstoppable. And I remember Unstoppable had a lawsuit against some people for the different domain extensions. So and I'm like, how can they do that? How can they, because this is Web3. And so because I was into Handshake names at the time, and once again, I've held on to a lot of those and probably shouldn't have, but that's my collector instinct. Anyway, so, I was always like, well, I don't feel like you could corner the market on a Web3 name. So, I was obviously on the side of Handshake there. So I wasn't really looking at Unstoppable for anything, but you guys have pivoted a lot since then. I mean, you dropped that lawsuit and you've totally pivoted in a different direction. And I love the direction you guys.
Well, we did win the .wallet lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't even
But
hear
anyway,
about that. Yeah.
We've tried not to make a lot of noise about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did win that one. But yeah, we have come a long way.
Right. And I love the pivot now to focusing on, the web 2 domain names, but implementing them with blockchain technology and, basically making them into NFTs so that they can be transferred instantaneously, wherever they are. And I think that is the future. And it also resonated with me when you were talking about the wallet. Like, you don't need to know your Light wallet. You don't even need to know about crypto to use it. I think that is really a key entry point into getting, mass adoption for stuff like this. Because a lot of people don't want to deal with how to do crypto or, or just figuring all of it out. They just want to go on, buy something, and have everything done behind the scenes. People don't need to know about blockchain in crypto. You just need to be able to buy, transfer, sell, and it work. And the more seamless it is, the better it is. And I think you're one of the few companies that are actually doing this and implementing it. And it's just a matter of time, until this becomes standard. And when we have a marketplace that's widely used, where people can buy and sell names like NFTs, domain names as NFTs, that's going to totally change the marketplace for everything for domain names. It's going to be so easy because everyone knows crypto money is crazy money, and they just want to spend. They'll buy anything. So a domain name listed on a platform for like 10 ETH, that seems like nothing. 10 ETH. What's 10 ETH to these people? But when you look at it in money, when you say $40,000 or $50,000, you have to think twice because that's real cash. So just having it in terms of crypto instead of money, I think will get a lot of people to buy. A lot of
it feels like play money, it doesn't
Yes.
doesn't hurt as bad when it leaves your wallet
play money,
because
exactly.
it's all imaginary. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think domainers have this Stockholm syndrome where they don't realize just how bad the experience is in domain name trading. Like these 60-day transfer locks and clawbacks on stale listings and domains that shouldn't have been listed, but they were actually listed incorrectly, or just lack of instant settlement. I think there's just a ton of low-hanging fruit that we're trying to tackle to give people a better experience, and it's very exciting. It feels like a matter of time now, like you said, rather than a speculative thing that's pie in the sky. So yeah, we're glad to hear. We'd love to have you try us out too. And while we're at it, guys, just about 12 hours left on $5 Fridays for .com, so go over and grab yourself a couple. Also got $550 transfers in, and we're also doing a referral program. So if you introduce me to some whales, then we can get both you and the whale up to 100 free transfers in. So reach out to me about that and introduce some people, and we can get you some free transfer issued to you. But anyways, Adam, it was great to chat. Love to get a different perspective from an affiliate marketing standpoint. Haven't learned much about that, so that was really fun. Looks like everyone got a lot of value out of this. So really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Too bad Ish couldn't make it, but he needs some new Wi-Fi, it sounds like.
Need some new Wi-Fi, indeed. Well, that's all right. We held down the fort.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, Adam.
Who needs Ish?
Yeah, who needs that guy? Come on. We're good enough. We are enough.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week. Ciao.
See ya.